Chapter 6. The Bitter Taste of Ambition. 2 months passed. Independence, Elena discovered, was not a destination, it was a daily grind. Vance Interiors was no longer a dream on a piece of paper. It was a schedule of 18-hour days that left her bones aching and her mind numb. Every morning began at 5 a.m. in the blue light of her apartment. She would sit at her drafting table, her back stiff, drinking lukewarm ginger tea to settle her stomach before the nausea could take hold. She welcomed the exhaustion. It was the only thing loud enough to drown out the voice in her head that asked if she was truly okay. Her bank account was finally reflecting her own sweat rather than Julian's dividends. She kept her invoices in a neat leather binder, and every time a client paid, she felt a small spark of victory. She was proving that she could survive without the Thorn Empire. But the overtime was starting to take a toll that caffeine couldn't fix. By 11 p.m., the lines of her blueprints would blur. She would find herself staring at a granite sample for 20 minutes, unable to remember if it was for a kitchen island or a bathroom vanity. Worst of all was the guilt. Every time she felt a twinge in her side or realized she had forgotten to eat lunch, she felt a wave of panic. She was working for the baby's future, but she feared she was sacrificing the baby's present. She would place her hand on her stomach and whisper apologies into the empty room, promising that once this contract was signed, things would change. Her bump was still invisible to the world, but to her, it felt like a mountain. She wore heavy silk scarves that draped over her chest and structured blazers that hid the slight curve of her stomach. She avoided the old restaurants where Julian's friends ate. She avoided the gala invitations. She disappeared in her own social circle, and for now, that was the only way to stay safe. One Tuesday morning, she found herself at the Buttered Crumb, a small bakery 3 blocks from her apartment. The morning sickness had evolved into a specific craving for lemon tarts. The bite of the acidity was the only thing that actually settled her stomach. She was waiting for her order, her head resting against the cool glass of the display case, when the door chimed. The air in the small shop shifted. Julian was there. He wasn't in his suit today. He wore a dark cashmere sweater and jeans, looking like the man she had met in her 20s. "Elena," he said. He looked surprised. For a second, his face was open and vulnerable. His hair was a little longer than he usually kept it, curling slightly at his neck. "Julian, I thought you were in Singapore this week." "I came back early. Board trouble." He looked at the box of tarts the baker was handing her. "Lemon? You used to say it tasted like floor cleaner. You used to only eat the chocolate croissants." "My palate has changed," she said, her heart racing. She felt a tiny, fluttering sensation in her stomach. The baby was active, responding to the sudden spike in her nerves. She squeezed the box of tarts to her chest, using it as a cover. Julian stepped closer. The scent of him nearly broke her. He reached out as if to touch her arm, his fingers hovering just inches from her sleeve. Then he pulled back, his hand curling into a fist at his side. "You look different, Elle. There's a heaviness in you I haven't seen in years. Are you sleeping?" "I'm just working, Julian. Standing on my own feet is exhausting but worth it." Julian didn't comment on that. He clearly didn't like the subject. His gaze dropped, landing on the way she was clutching the bakery box. "I'm late for a meeting," she said, fleeing the shop before he could find out anything else. She didn't look back until the cab pulled away from the curb. Through the smudged rear window, she saw Julian standing on the sidewalk, perfectly still, watching in her direction. And even from half a block away, Elena could feel the chill of his suspicion. The encounter had left her feeling exposed. By the time she reached her studio, the intensity had faded, leaving behind a cold fatigue. The workspace was a hive of frantic energy. Sarah was practically sprinting between the printer and the layout table, collating the thick, glossy pages of the Lumiere proposal. "The rendering for the lobby is slightly off-center," Sarah called out, not looking up from the paper cutter. "I'm reprinting it now. We have 45 minutes before we need to leave." Elena didn't have time to rest. She threw the lemon tarts in the trash. The craving was gone, replaced by a tight knot of dread. Sarah pivoted from the cutter, snatched a steaming cup of ginger tea off the counter, and set it down on the drafting table. "You're shaking, Elle." Sarah said, her eyes already scanning the next set of prints as she moved past. And not the good, I just landed a client, kind of shaking. Drink the tea. I ran into him. Elena said, her voice barely a whisper. At the bakery. He knew my order was different. He knew my face looked different. Sarah pulled up a stool. Do we need to worry? It's fine to look different going into a new life. I can't hide it much longer, Sarah. The Lumiere meeting is today. Marcus will be there. Elena rubbed her temples. Marcus was the company's primary enforcer, a man who viewed business as a series of wins and losses. Unlike Julian, Marcus possessed a restless energy, and he had spent years looking for a way to prove that Elena was the one variable holding the Thorn Empire back. Don't worry too much right now, Sarah said firmly. You have prepared for it for so long, and you're going to be the most professional, most boring person in the room. Don't give them a reason to look at you. Just make them look at the work. Elena nodded and turned back to her drafting table. She opened her laptop to go over her presentation one last time. As she clicked through the slides, she felt herself return. The nerves and the secret stayed, but her work was solid. Once everything was in place, she closed it out and sat back. She was ready.